Good evening. This is Weekdays with Wendy, and I'm reading to you from the Love Your Neighbor, No Exceptions daily calendar. And today's reading is a quote from Martin Luther. You are not only responsible for what you say, but also for what you do not say. Now, I am here in El Paso visiting Lydia Patterson Institute, and I find this quote particularly fitting for a story that I heard. I was getting to visit with Dr. Socorro Deyonda, who is the president of Lydia Patterson Institute, and she has been serving here for over 30 years and has done just a remarkable job. We had a chance to visit, and she was sharing how she came to be a part of Lydia Patterson. She was in business, and she was considering a job at Johnson & Johnson. They had offered her a position, and they wanted her so much for this position that they were giving her several months to kind of weigh it over. And in the midst of that time, she decided to take some time off, and she volunteered to serve at Lydia Patterson. Now, Lydia Patterson also wanted her to come on board, but, she didn't want to do that, but she would volunteer her time. And she was helping out there, and day after day, she was working, sort out some business and administrative issues for Lydia Patterson. And day after day, one of the Lydia Patterson staff members asked her to come to chapel. And she was a business person, and she said, I don't have enough time. I've got work to do. So she was focused and wanted to help and driven. Well, one day the staff member asked her and said, "Are you coming to chapel? It's senior chapel." And Socorro asked, "Well, what is that?" And it turns out the senior students had just returned back from their senior retreat, and it was their turn to speak there in chapel. And so Socorro said, I'll check this out. So she went and she said she sat at the very back, probably wanting to be able to make a quick exit if she needed to or if she could. But what the chapel was that day was a day for all of those students to be able to get up one after another and tell what they had experienced on the senior retreat, but also have a chance to share what Lydia Patterson meant to them. And in those moments, Socorro said that she was blown away, that here were these teenagers getting up before hundreds of students and kind of pouring out their heart about what had happened in their lives through the retreat, through the education, through Lydia Patterson. And she said, if these students have the courage to get up and give this kind of testimony, something incredible is happening here. And it was the testimony of those students that through which God was speaking to her heart. And so she turned down the job at Johnson & Johnson, which would have paid her many, many times what she would earn at Lydia Patterson, because she realized God was bringing her to that place. Imagine if those students had not gotten up to testify. Imagine if no one had spoken. Imagine if she sat there and no one said a word. You are not only responsible for what you say, but also for what you do not say. Listen to what God places on your heart. because your words of gratitude, your words describing what God has done in your life, your words of telling the difference that something has made for you might transform somebody else's life. When you're called to share good news, gratitude or inspiration, or a story that talks about God's work in your life, it takes courage to open up and share that. But you're responsible for those words. If you have words to share, share them. Because someone might really need to hear them. For Dr. Socorro Deyonda, it not only blessed her life, but through her, hundreds of students have been blessed. Lives have been changed because she heard the words that were spoken by some courageous teenagers to talk about what God had done for them. Don't shrink back when you have good news to share. Be sure to take opportunities to share words of thanksgiving, to tell what God is doing for you. You never know how that might continue to bless and bless and bless. Have a great night.